Welcome back to Blue Collar Coder. And if you're a fan of React Query, like I am, you'll be excited to hear about React Location, which is Tanner Inslee's new alternative to React Router, which is more declarative and also works both on the client and the server side. So it does everything that React Router does, but just in a more declarative style. Let's jump in and have a look at how all this is put together. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a simple test app and just walk you through the basics of this. So to do that, I'm going to use MPX and then my create MF app. And I'm going to call this test app. It's going to be an application. We're going to put it on port 3001. It's going to be a React app, and we're going to use TypeScript for this. We're also going to use Tailwind for our CSS. So that's the nice thing about that create MF app. It just creates these very small apps that are easy to use. The reason it's called MF is because it's around module federation, and it also sets that up for you, but we're not going to look at that in this particular video. I'm going to do yarn and now yarn start on that. All right, looking pretty good and pretty basic. Basically, it just says our name of our app is test app, is React, TypeScript, and Tailwind. So I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to stop the server, and I'm going to add React location, and I'll start it up again. Now over in our test app, I'm going to go down into the source directory, and we've got an app.tsx file. I'm just going to bring in router and route and outlet from React location. So the first thing I need to do is just define a few routes. I'm going to say routes, and then that's going to be an array of routes. And I'll start off with the home route. So I'll say that that is path slash, and then I'll just give it an element. I'll say element is homepage, right? And then I'll add another path. Let's say cart. We'll call that cart page. Awesome, cool, easy enough so far. So now I'm going to put in a router down in my app. And a router is going to take those routes, and it's going to put an outlet on the page, and that outlet is where you want the content to go. So I'm actually just going to replace all of this with that outlet. Cool, but we're missing one more thing, and that's the location, our current location. So I'm going to bring in React location, and I'm just going to go instantiate that. I'm going to say that our location is a new React location. And then I'm going to drop that in there as the location prop. And we'll see how we do. Let's go back over into our app. Now we can see that we're on the home page, and we can go and navigate to cart. And we're on the cart page. How cool is that? All right. So to do navigation, I can just bring in the link, and then I can put a link anywhere on here. I can say link, go to cart, and I can tell that where it's going to go. Cool. And now I'll go back to the home page, click on go to cart, and now we're on the cart page, just like that. So that's a SPA navigation or a single page application navigation. So you don't actually go off and fetch anything from the server unless you need some data, and we'll get into that in just a bit. Okay. And then one last thing I want to talk about before we get into this is if you have like a nested route. So you might expect at this point that you could do something along the lines of product/ID, and then you get a product page. And let's try that out. Let's go to product 1. Okay, that seems to work. So let's go over and use match. And that's how we're going to get the data out of that route. So I'm going to create really quickly just a product component here. And I'm going to say that our params are usematch.params. And I'm going to return a div with product page, and then JSON.stringify and the params. All right, let's take a look. Let's drop that in there for the product page. All right, cool. That works. But there is another way to do this, which I think is a bit more declarative. You can also create a children array here and have this be nested. So within this, I can create yet another path for ID, and that would have the element on it. And I'll make this just product. And so this just reads a little bit better to me, but it's totally up to you which one you want to use. All right, so I've taken this example about as far as I want to take it. So the next thing I want to do is I want to show you an e-commerce application, and it's a pretty simple demo e-commerce application currently using React Router v6. And what we're going to do is port that over to React location. So what I'm going to do now is do yarn start in that directory. All this code is of course available to you in GitHub. And here is our homepage. It's a fidget spinner e-commerce store. So what you can do is log in, and from there you can add items to the cart. You can see the cart over here. You can click on an item and add it to the cart, or update the count of it in the cart. You can add new cart items like that. You can click on an item and go to the product page. So you can see that's product 2 in this case. And then finally, you can click on here and go to the cart and see all the stuff in your cart. This person is going nuts when it comes to buying fidget spinners, I guess. So yay for that. Awesome for us. Okay, cool. So we're going to go import this over to React location. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is go into our ecom app, and then we're going to remove React Router DOM. And then we're going to add React location. So this is basically a heart transplant. Until we get pretty much down the road with this, we're actually not going to have any safe save points. It's pretty much an all or nothing deal here. So not really sure if there's any way around that one.
Hold on to your butts.
All right, I'm going to do a yarn start now. And obviously it's just blowing up all over the place because we have no React Router DOM. Okay, so to start this out, I'm actually going to go and take part of that code that we wrote before, this set of routes, and also this import statement, and I'm going to go over into our e-commerce app. And in here, I'm going to go create a new file called router.tsx and pop that in there. And I'm also going to pop in our list of routes and our location. I'm going to put that all in there for our routes. And so this is sort of the global declaration of all of our routes. So we're going to use that because later on, we're going to have some typing in here when it comes to this React location about the payloads. So it's nice to have this kind of all in one spot. All right, so the next thing we need to do is go over here into our components. And most of this, the React Router work in this particular app is done in this main layout. So main layout is a component, and it basically has the header at the top, all the routes and all that. And so you can see in here the React Router v6 components. Router at the top, you got the routes, and then within that routes, and within that route where you give the element and the path, and yeah, pretty nice. I like it, but it doesn't do some of the things that React location does as easily. So that's kind of why I'm doing this right now. Okay, so what I need now are the contents, because that's actually what we want to route to. So let's bring those in, and I'm just going to drop those down here where they're required. So in this case, that's going to be PDP content, and in this case, it's going to be that homepage content. And here it's going to be that cart content. All right, cool. Not too bad. So this also needs to go to components. All right, looking pretty good. Now in here, we're not going to need router or outlet or link or use match, but we will need React because we are actually doing that JSX in there. So we'll bring in React from React. All right, and of course we need to export this, and we need to export the location. I think I might be cooking with some gas. So let's go back over here into our main layout. And I'm going to change this to React location. We're going to keep router there and also bring in outlet. Cool. And from here, we want to bring in routes and also location from our router. Get rid of all that. Let's see. So we've got router down there. That's good. And we want to say that our routes are the routes that we just defined. Our location is the location that we just defined. And then down in here, we just specify that outlet. Okay, cool. So now we got a few more connections to React Router DOM. So let's go find those. So I'm going to go over here to cart content and see if there's anything. Nothing. Is there anything in the footer or the header? Nope, not in the footer. Oh, there's a link in the header. So let's change that out to React location. Nice. Let's go over here to home content. There's a link in there. When you click on one of the products, that's a React location link. Cool. Login doesn't have anything. Main layout. Nope, that's what we just were. Mini cart doesn't have anything. And PDP contents. Okay, so we've got use params here. So that's going to change to use match. Change that to React location. Use match. And we'll just dereference params there. Cool. All right. Hey, all right. Cool. So we are now essentially ported to React location, just like that. So that's pretty cool. Nice. So let's make sure that we have a nice cart page there. Yeah. Looks awesome. How easy was that? That was quick. Okay. So the next thing I want to show off is asynchronous loading of components and how easy that is. So let's go back over here to our router. And what's happening right now is that everything is lumped into one big old bundle. And what we can do instead is actually make these elements asynchronous. So to do that, we just make this a function. So then I'm going to import exactly the same thing. So in this case, home content from components. That's going to give us back a promise. So I'm going to say then, and that then is going to bring us back a module. But instead of returning default, we're just going to render it as an element. Okay, cool. Nice. All right. So let's see if that works. Let's go over here and hit refresh. And that seems to work. That's awesome. All right. So let's do the same thing for PDP content and cart content. So I'll do element again. In this case, I'll do PDP content. And then I'll do element again down here and do the same thing for cart content. Let's make sure that we still work. Yeah, looking good. All right, let's refresh and go over to the home page. And we'll go into the network panel and we'll see if we're actually doing asynchronous loading of these different routes. All right, so we got JS selected. I'm gonna hit refresh and we'll see that we get a whole bunch of stuff, including the homepage content. And then when I click on drag and spinner, which is the detail page, we get a new load down in here of that one. Cool. Yeah, source components PDP. And now when I hit the cart page, I get the cart page. So there you go. Asynchronous loading of routes, just like that. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is asynchronous preloading of data. So let's go back here and I'll show you the product detail page, right? So this product detail page, let's look at how that actually works. So we'll go into PDP content and we'll zoom down here and we can see that it gets the ID and then it has a place to store the product, which is stores as state. And then it does a use effect and it says, okay, well, if the ID changes, then we're going to go get a product by ID and then we're going to set that local state. And if we don't have anything loaded yet, then we're not going to show anything, which is I'm not super happy about this. So what we're going to do instead is have a data loader on that route. And that data loader is actually going to do this get product by ID. And it's going to store that data in this use match so that by the time that you get to PDP content, you will have the data for the product ready to go. So you're actually going to stall the loading of the route until you have the data to render that route. All right, let's go back over here to our router and clean this up a little bit. So I can get rid of those. So what we're going to do is define that we have a loader for this particular route. It's going to be an async function that takes a set of params, just like we had before. And then we're going to return a product where we await the return of get product by ID on that params ID. Cool, right? And so now cool, right? Now let's add a comma down there. Nice, make it all good. Okay, cool. Let's make sure that this still actually works. I'm gonna hit refresh. Nice, okay. Now if I go over to the PDP content, I can say that the product is coming through the data. And let's get rid of all of this. Hit save. And now it runs, but it doesn't know what the type of product is because we haven't specified that yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our router and I'm going to bring in the definition of product and also make generics. I'm going to come down here and we're going to export a type. Call it location generics. And in here, we're going to say that the loader data returns a product and that's of a type of product. Cool. All right, so let's take that location generics, get back over here into PDP content. I'm going to bring that in from our router. I can import that as a type if I want to. And then in here, when I use match, I can properly type out that data. And now I can also do some nice cleanup in here. Cool. Cool. And wow, this is starting to look really nice. I like that. I like that look a lot. Okay. Very clean. So now there is one more thing that does that same type of loading, and that is the homepage. So let's go back over here, and the homepage has the exact same problem. So let's go and take a look over the homepage and see how that's working. Same thing over here. We got our list of products maintained as state internally. You've got a use effect that loads that. So, hey, can we do better? Yes, of course we can. So we'll go back over to our router, and I'll start this time again with a loader. So again, we're going to have an async. It's going to take nothing because we don't need parameters, right? We're always going to get the same thing. So we're going to get our products, and then we're going to return our products where we await the get products. And so we also need to bring that in as well. And then just one last thing, we need to go down to our location generics and add that. So products in this case will be an array of products. Okay, cool. Nice. All right. So now the homepage route is only going to load after it does this loader to get all that data. Cool. So let's now go over to home content and see how to make use of that. All right, so we need use match. So let's go over here to PDP content. We'll bring in use match into home content, and we'll also bring in that location generics to make it nice. And then over here in PDP content, let's just also bring in that use match, and we'll replace products with products, just like that. Get rid of this use effect, and we'll see how we do. Let's make it, get my OCD going there. Yeah, all right. Very nice. Very clean. Okay, great. Okay, and then there's one last thing I want to show before we wrap this up, and that is the import of a whole module. So when you think about it, home content is actually broken into two pieces now, right? So you got the router part over here with the loader, and you got the element part over here that's bringing in that homepage component. So what if we can actually fuse those two together into a homepage module? So let's try that. Let's go and take loader here and this element, and I'm going to go create a new thing called home module.tsx, and it's going to export by default this homepage stuff. So of course we need the get products. Let's do that. All right, looking pretty good. And then we'll also bring in React. So now I've got this home module, and we can go over here into router. So instead of this, we are going to import, and then we're going to import that components home module. And then from that, we're going to get a module again, and we're just going to return the default. Now let's go back over to the homepage, and it works just fine. So here's a really cool thing, right? If you've got homepage and it's actually in a different NPM library, for example, that NPM library can just have that module, and it can define for itself all of the data preload that it needs, as well as how it's going to be rendered. And it can do it all in one spot. You don't actually, your preloading and your rendering logic is all in the same place. All right, so let's do the same thing for our PDP content. And then, of course, all of that code will go to you in GitHub, and you can play around with it yourself. So let's go over here and copy out loader and element. And again, I'll create a new file called PDP module, TSX. And I'm going to import React. And I'm going to export the default of that loader and that element. This is going to be in the same directory, so I don't need that. And then we need get product by ID. Awesome, looking good. Okay, let's go back over to our router. And then in this case, we just import. And we're just going to do the PDP module instead of the home module. Nice. Okay, let's try it out. Refresh. Yeah, works great. Cool. So now the PDP content is basically all bundled together. And you can imagine that that would be in an extracted NPM module that would just be around the PDP and allow that PDP page to run independently. Pretty cool stuff. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this quick look at Tanner Inslee's awesome new React location library and are going to try it out yourself and see if it's a decent alternative to you to React Router DOM or how they compare. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, be sure to put those in the comment section down below. I look forward to reading all of those. In the meantime, of course, if you like the video, be sure to hit that like button. And if you really like the video, be sure to hit the subscribe button, click on that bell, and you'll be notified the next time a new Blue Collar Coder comes out.